which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So tonight we'll start with the comments from the public on agenda and non-agenda items. The Board of Education welcomes district residents, parents, students, and other people to our meeting. Community involvement at board meetings is encouraged so that we can better understand your views. Please be aware that individual student information or particular personnel issues will not be discussed by this board during public session. When recognized by the board president, please state your name and address. Statements are restricted to a maximum of 3 minutes. The speakers will be notified by the board president when their time has expired. When speaking, the public shall direct their comments to the board and not district staff or other audience members. Speakers shall not expect board members to answer questions during public comment. Questions shall be referred to the superintendent or his or her designee for review, study, and response. If appropriate, the board may request that you should be a discussion item at a future Board of Education meeting or Board of Education committee meeting. Is there anybody here who wishes to address the board at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. No presentations?
No, not general.
Okay. So we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Sure. I have a brief one tonight. Can everybody hear me okay? We have just my normal topics of communication and safety. I just wanted to highlight that drill and lockdown procedures are being conducted, and as per law, they're also being advertised prior to those, about a week in advance, and we put out a general announcement prior to that so that there are no surprises to parents. The feeling is that enough is stressful, so we don't need to make that stressful as well. So that includes our evacuation drills, fire drills, and lockdowns as well. Just a word to the board, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. But we do have cybersecurity insurance now. We have specialized legal counsel that advises us as such, and that insurance is called Cowbell. It's kind of a comical name, but it's $1 million worth of cyber insurance should we get hacked somehow. And we do all that through the NARIC, which is the BOCES service that provides all their transportation network. And so that's also aidable. Those services are aidable as well. So I don't know if you have any questions about that. I could go on and on if you like. Interesting. Safety plan, I know that there's been quite a bit of swatting notifications out there, more recently BOCES. A total of 17 different BOCES have had swatting calls and incidents, all of them to be unfounded, and all of them, I think, generalized to be the same source. And I've been reading a little bit about Bethlehem. Mentally it's very stressful for a school and for teachers, for administrators to hear all these things. But I wanted to give some assurance. We're going to be sending a safety card home. It's in draft form still, just for the next couple of days, but to parents to ask them to play a part in preparing their kids, their own families, for what the school expects for students and staff when there is such a threat, and what families can expect as well. But partly these drills and lockdown procedures, these are all meant to put us in a good place so that we're mentally ready. Of course, every time something like this happens, a lot of this training goes out the window, and you do what you need to do. But there is a district internal calendar for all of these drills and things, all done in advance. We share that calendar. We will continue to notify parents of drills prior, so that there's no confusion between drills and what might be the real thing.
Could you remind some of us what swatting is?
Oh, sorry. Swatting is basically that call that schools get saying that there's someone's going to come and shoot up the school.
Oh, okay.
We call it swatting
because it elicits a SWAT response, basically.
I'm not sure. Does anybody know why it's called swatting?
I think swatting is more like where you call the police and alert them of an incident at a random location, and then a SWAT team shows up, like people do it at private residences and schools and stuff, to potentially set up a police encounter where they're heavily armed and could potentially injure somebody, even though there is no violent threat. So that's what's why.
Gotcha. It's terrorism, basically, and it's always the police response. Thanks for that, March. Traffic safety, you may be hearing, I know Jen just asked me about the blockade. That was the superintendent's answer to what he's observed in terms of safety issues with crosswalks and people were driving really quickly and haphazardly. So we learned pretty quickly that backed traffic all the way up to Melcher Street, and so we, Alicia got the team together. We made other recommendations. I think that are going to work pretty well, meaning we're going to put some speed bumps there, slow signs, and we're just going to try to deal with it that way, opening back up that throughway behind the JPAC. So in case you got any information about that, that was really to try to eliminate the safety danger, I think, for people boarding buses, exiting buses, and walking through the crosswalks. But, you know, we live and learn, so that's all about. And then there will also be a crossing person there as well. I talked to you a little bit about the family safety bulletin. It's in draft form, but that will essentially share with families and ask them to be prepared, plan to teach their students from a home perspective, to be good partners, communicative, and cooperative with the school should there be a crisis. And it also meant to show preparedness by the school. And you will no doubt hear the word regionalization, especially coming out of BOCES. And regionalization, there is a Mohawk Valley Southern Adirondack Town Hall on October 10th. The commissioner plans to come. I don't quite know if that's open in March. You may know a little bit more. I don't know if that's quite open to, I guess, March Issues Communications with BOCES. So.
I think so because we heard about it at department meeting, so I think so. But.
The only thing we talked about today at the CSO meeting, which is when all the superintendents get together, we talked about the state ed department with Commissioner Rosa wanting to limit it to 50 people. That was all we talked about. So it could be rather small. But if there's an open invitation, I'll certainly let you know. But there, Commissioner Rosa will talk about the concept of regionalization, what it is and what it isn't. It is not a mandate to merge schools. It's really a charge by state ed for schools now to take a collaborative regional approach to offer equitable access, operational efficiencies, local solutions, continuous improvement, things like that. We are doing some of that. In athletics, we've had a shared business service, and I think the commissioner wants us to look deeper into what the possibilities are there. You may be also hearing the term portrait of a graduate. We had some training on that, a better introduction yesterday in Saratoga. The Blue Ribbon Commission, which has been working for quite a while on this concept, on graduation measures. Brandon Hillier, a social studies teacher, here at the high school, Nicole Panton, Alicia Coster, Scott Hale, and me, we all attended yesterday's forum. And in summary, you know, the state education department is redefining credits and how they are stacked up, expanding learning experiences for kids, not just the traditional Regents track, changing the assessment requirements. All state assessments are still being offered. So if you hear that they're going away, that's not true. It's just that for some students, different assessments will apply for graduation. And then there will be one diploma rather than three, which is Regents, non-Regents, and local, I believe. Is that right, Nicole?
Yeah, just going back to the Regents exams.
Yeah.
The Regents exams are still required because under the U.S. Department of Education's PASA plan, that's how New York State gets evaluated for our education system. So we still have to provide those exams. The students will still have to take them. So they'll turn more like a 3-through-8 assessment where they're accountability measures now for the school district instead of graduation requirements for our students.
Great. Yeah.
And then it's one diploma type with endorsements or credentials added onto it and that the district can apply to it versus 3 different diploma types that we currently have.
Nice summary. It's just meant to open the pathways for kids who learn differently. As you know, Alicia and I were in Omaha, Nebraska last week, and that was mandatory training with a farm to school grant. And we met today for brainstorming ways to utilize that grant, which is about $100,000. So the idea is to bring fresh food into our cafeteria, taste testing, field trips, connecting local farmers to school, and then we have this idea of gardening kits for teachers, classrooms, and clubs, and there will be a few other items as well. Just a word on budget and personnel. APPR is pretty much staying the course from what we've been doing, and then we have some time to review that and see if we want any changes. Of course, that's all negotiated with JTA and JAA. And then just a word on COVID leave. COVID is very much still around, and the difference is that while we still also have paid leave for COVID, but there seems to be some confusion. So if you hear as a board member anything around COVID and paid leave, there is paid leave, but it's really quite different than it used to be. Still requiring a PCR test from a doctor or a WellNow, or even a pharmacy could administer a PCR test. And so it is very possible to get that PCR test. A simple home quick test is not going to do it, but we need that as proof in order to get that paid leave. And then the same could apply. There's a law in New York State to offer time off for voting, which is probably a great thing. But we're pretty well versed in how to make that happen as well if we need to have it happen. And the transportation report, the routes are still settling in, right, Julia? Making adjustments as needed. Stressing Julia out a little bit, making her a little sick, but she's rebounding. It is improving every year, I've noticed. STA Grounds is an excellent partner. Julia, is there anything you might want to say about it? It's not all bed of roses, is it?
No, but it could be much worse, so I will take it all day long. No, really, it wasn't a bad start by any means, and it's just getting better every day.
Some good planning, I think we're in a good place.
Yes.
And then I told you about the traffic flow, and that's all I have for my report, unless you have questions.
Okay, moving along. Employee leadership reports. We have with us Nancy Lasucki with the JTA. Welcome.
Thank you. So, welcome back to school. Tonight I want to talk a little bit about what happens before that first day when we say welcome back to our students. So I invite you to think back to a time, maybe the last time you did a home improvement project, or maybe the last time you moved to a new home. Remember the work that went into it. First, you got the final preparation, you're packing up all of your things, you're making sure that they're not going to be damaged by the movers or the construction, and then you actually have the arduous task of the actual move and construction. And then you've got to unpack your home. Well, teachers undergo that process every single year to some degree, varying degrees depending on the situation. So every June, if a teacher's lucky enough to actually be able to stay in the same classroom for the next year, which happens most of the time, they still have to actually box up supplies and materials and take the items off the walls. This allows the custodians come in and they clear that room out. Everything goes into the hallway. You guys have probably been in the hallways in the summertime. They take everything out of a room, clean that room, and replace it. So, moreover, though, if a teacher actually has to move classrooms, that's actually another story. It's actually really a very painful story. When they have to move to a whole new classroom, every single item, with only a few exceptions, need to be boxed up, labeled. This process takes days, weeks. We actually have an example. Example A right here for your reference. This is one of our teachers. But then our fantastic buildings and grounds crews and along with the custodians move these boxes to the new classroom. Work obviously is done continues because these things have to be unpacked. So unpacking your own classroom, if you're being able to stay in the same classroom, it takes a couple of days of work. You actually can take a look at our music teacher's class. This is her classroom. It's an air quote that one. She's on the stage. But you see all the boxes on the floor. You see all the chairs stacked up against the back wall. She's 5 foot. I don't know how she got those chairs down from there, but I guess that's for another day. So the teacher takes warm space for learning. So for those teachers who are moving to a new classroom though, setting up a new classroom doesn't take days, it actually takes literally weeks. Our principals behind us know they're in this come along and they see the teachers do that. So, as you know, school is in session over the summer, so teachers are required to work over the summer. But if they didn't come in, we don't know how a classroom would go from looking like this to looking like this, and this, and this, and this. A place ready to receive our littles if they didn't come in. So, how would this secondary classroom go from this empty shell to this vibrant celebration of student work and student learning if they didn't come in over the summer? So I'm a union leader and I'm supposed to be advocating for our membership, and I'm telling you, yay, look at, we come in and we work for free, and the teachers actually dig into their own pockets to buy, all these decorations for their classroom because they want their classrooms to not look like this. They would like them to look like, oops, I guess do this one, that. So, imagine my struggle right now, kind of touting that we work for free and in your own pockets. Little contradictory implications, but you all know that you would like to compensate people for all the work they do. But we also know that it's just a reality that that's not going to happen. So I do have an ask. My ask is that I hope the next time that you're at a school-wide event or the library or the coffee shop, you run into a teacher, take a moment to tell them thank you. I know you do. Maybe with this you can have just a deeper appreciation for what happens before that first school day when we welcome our kids back. It's warm and comfortable, inviting, productive spaces for students to learn. Thank you.
Thank you. Throwing a hip replacement, you described my life to a T last year. Okay. Don't have any board report to offer this month. Our activity's been fairly quiet. Committee reports, I do have a couple of committee reports. First is the audit, budget, and finance. Let's see, that's this one here. So just very briefly, we had a brief discussion about some old business related to the energy performance contract related to the solar project, planning for referendum, with the original target being for mid-December, and due to some aspects of project development, we decided to shift the new target for the referendum to be in March. Basically offering an opportunity to share information through the shared decision-making team, and working through the initial feasibility study now to help us understand the framework of this potential project and cost structure and financial pro forma. And they're still constructing that financial model now that'll prove out project costs and aidability. Under some new business, we discussed an internal audit that was conducted with regard to concussion management. There were a few observations from the audit. First off, there was the school medical director was identified as not being sufficiently a part of the discussion of clearing kids to play sports. In discussion with the medical director, we expressed a lot of openness to changing protocols and getting him on board as part of that concussion protocol team and process. We also were noted to, with regard to injury report forms being improperly completed and organized. So the district is modifying its concussion reporting and communications protocols related to injury information in order to identify responsible reporting parties and making sure that the flow of communication is happening on a regular basis. And then lastly, there were some issues with regards to staff requirements for training and the need to get nurses, PE teachers, and coaches into a concussion protocol training program all of which has, a plan has been laid out, and these individuals who are part of that concussion protocol process will get the necessary training so we can recognize these symptoms before they become detrimental to a student's health and happiness and learning activities. And on top of all of that, as a result of all of this, I suppose, the district has created a concussion management plan and handbook, not a construction management plan, as I wrote the notes. And so that'll be a document that is something that can live in perpetuity and be a living document for our use into the future. We also briefly reviewed the cybersecurity planning and insurance services. As Dr. Crankshaw indicated in his report, we now have cybersecurity insurance and legal counsel on these threats. They are significant to a lot of school districts, and we feel we need to be prepared for that, and it should be noted that there is, of course, a cost associated with that service. So we adjourned at 7:02. Next meeting is October 8th at 7:30 in the district office.
That date's probably not correct because we are into the new schedule.
Yeah, good point. Refer to the new schedules that Lorena has passed out for our committee and board meetings. Board meetings haven't changed, but a number of committee meetings have. So next up, we had the facilities committee meeting notes. So we briefly reviewed the median project, which is currently out for bid. Bids are due October 1st. There was a report that the design team is preparing an addendum to be issued to the bidders. Scope modification to convert the high school courts into 2 basketball courts and 3 pickleball courts is really the essence of that addendum. And includes running a new electric feed from the JPAC to the courts, the court lighting system out there to solve the existing short that's preventing the use of those lights. Small project 2, this includes the high school toilet room renovations. Toilet rooms are being designed as gender neutral. New York State SED has established new rules that 50% of stalls need to be accessible. Every stall is required to have a sink. As a result, the first floor layout has been revised and includes 10 gender neutral stalls. And to be clear, these stalls will be floor to ceiling and completely private. They're not the flimsy toilet stalls that I think many of us are familiar with. So a high level of privacy and security will be offered and be provided with more opportunities for general observation from staff and administration. Second floor layout is not fully resolved, but is likely to have fewer stalls because there are more spatial constraints, but that is still in development. The EPC is continuing with a lighting and weatherization package, and both are basically under substantial completion right now. There are a few lingering items to complete to close out those scope packages. And next up, I believe, is the controls package, which hasn't yet started and will be soon. And then lastly, the EPC solar project planning. And so we experienced a switch in the solar companies that we're dealing with. The new company is Aries. Aries will be the subcontractor to our energy services company, whose name is Danforth. In discussions with National Grid to study the design parameters of the project right now. Targeting a referendum for early March 2025. The issue will be forwarded to the shared decision-making team for feedback. Timeline for the plan and plan for the building condition survey will start pretty soon, or is underway actually already. This is in lead up to our large capital project plan. These BCS is required to be on 5-year intervals. The last one was completed in 2021. We're currently ahead of schedule. The drafts have been created. The committee will begin reviewing the BCS in December. A couple items of new business came up. First up was the planning for technology and safety upgrades to the classrooms. This is with day automation and audio enhancement, or it is audio.
It is.
It is audio enhancement. It's nothing new.
It is also new.
Oh, okay. There you go. I love the creativity. So the administration attended the NARIC conference, witnessed a demonstration of an audio enhancement system for classroom use. The system includes a lanyard with a mic and an emergency call button. I think, did you also say a camera feature in that lanyard?
There's a camera feature as well, which is controlled by the teacher.
Gotcha.
They can turn it on or off.
Okay. So it has some promise to substantially improve audibility within the classroom and improve classroom safety. And we are looking to run a pilot program to test the efficacy of the system. We are also going to change the committee name. We will no longer be called the Facilities Committee. We will now refer to ourselves as the Operations and Planning Committee. I'll design the logo. And refer to your sheet for the next meeting date coming up.
Should I add to the audio?
Yeah.
Just, I'm watching Nancy in the audience. This is going to be new to Nancy, but we attended a NARIC conference, which is obviously all of our technology runs through NARIC overseas. And so this great product came up, and it was an audio enhancement product, which I know some special education teachers use to help their students hear better in the classroom. Essentially, it's a necklace, a lanyard with a microphone and a camera if we choose that. But it allows the teacher to talk, and every kid in every corner of the classroom to hear effortlessly with high quality speakers. But it also carries with it a button which you press 3 times on the side, and that way you can immediately connect the office without having to go to your phone. If you've got an emergency in your classroom, a behavioral emergency or something, the office has, if the teacher chooses to turn on the camera, it's all within their control. The office can see what's happening in the classroom, run down there right away. It's just another safety mechanism, but it's also to enhance the listening experience for every child in the classroom. And we're going to ask for volunteers to pilot this, but we have lots of talking to do or ways for that. Austin, you want to say something?
Yeah, just to also clarify about the camera stuff. One, we have the infrastructure plan in place for it, but right now we just don't have the infrastructure for the additional cable runs in every single room for the camera. But also, just to clarify, the camera doesn't.
It's not in the necklace, right?
Yeah, it sits in the corner of the wall facing away, and as soon as it's alerted, it flips around, showing the event that's taking place for the main office to see. We've also ran it by them, and they said that it is fully legal because I'm very concerned over cameras in classrooms as well. But so I did ask, and it is fully legal, fully functional. It can work like this. But I just wanted to clarify that the camera does not stay on, and it does not face inside the classroom. It faces the wall until that alert is pressed.
By only the teacher.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
we'll talk more about it, but
Yeah, to be understood that it is not something that's being enacted, it's simply a pilot to test it. So moving along, we do have one bit of correspondence. This was a letter from the Rural Schools Association. I'm not going to go through it. If you have an interest in engaging with the RSA, feel free to take that flyer and run with it. Okay, we've got, next up is the consent agenda. In an effort to expedite the business of the Board of Education, but in no way meant to diminish the importance of each item, the consent agenda may be used for the items in this section. Items may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any one board member. Items not removed will be adopted by general consent without debate. Any removed items may be taken up either immediately after the consent agenda or placed later on the agenda at the discretion of the board. So our consent agenda includes section 6, consent to action personnel for memorandums of agreement with the JTA, 6th period stipend for non-tenured teachers, memorandum of agreement with CSEA, short-term clerical substitute support for facilities and transportation, rescinding appointments, and leaves of absence, resignations, miscellaneous creations, adjustments, and appointments. Consent, section 7, consent action business, which includes approval of the August 15th, 2024 meeting minutes. And we have consent action, CSE, CPSE, 504 committee placements. And that is the extent of our consent agenda, correct? So I'd look for a motion to accept the consent agenda. March, second, Jen. Any discussion? Anybody want to take anything else?
I wasn't at the last meeting, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't.
Yeah.
Not that
There was nothing.
what's any ability there, okay.
So, okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, and just to let everybody know, Joelle Richardson is online.
Can you see my hand?
Yep, I can, thank you.
Okay.
So we're unanimous in that. Next item is action items business. We have, the internal audit for Questar 3 with the corrective action plan.
Did you get the, oh, did you include the CESE, CPSE?
Yes, that was included in my motion. So we had the internal audit and corrective action plan. This is a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to accept the district's internal audit for the period of July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024, and approve the corrective action plan dated September 4th, 2024, related to the concussion management audit conducted by Questar 3. So the audit report is included, and so I would ask for a motion to accept. Leslie, second. Mark? Any discussion? Questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. We are unanimous. Thank you. All right, so we have next up the abolition of policy 5240, school tax assessment. This is a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to abolish the following policies effective September 19, 2024. That is policy 5240, school tax assessment and collection, policy 5241, property tax exemption for senior citizens. I wonder if Dr. Cranchuk could just give us a brief summary of the reason for the abolition.
Sure. So it was years ago that the tax laws allowed exemptions or certain exemptions for senior citizens, for military veterans and emergency workers. That sort of came on the heels of 9/11. The district never chose to honor that because I wasn't here, but I'm assuming I was at a different school district. I'm assuming it was because what other school districts talked about was if we offer it to one, we offer it to everybody, and we will never collect taxes if we keep offering these exemptions. So typically districts don't offer these exemptions. That's widely acceptable. And so because it's governed by law, because we don't offer these exemptions, there's no real reason to have this just shining in our face in the policy book every time.
Gotcha.
Nobody's looking at it. It doesn't appeal. It doesn't
Actually apply.
It doesn't actually apply to us.
Okay. Well, I'll ask for the motion. Okay, Beth, second, Leslie. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. We're unanimous, thank you. All right, next up is rescinding the interscholastic athletic merger with Gloversville for JV and varsity alpine ski for the winter 2024-25. Looking for a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to rescind that portion of the resolution adopted on July 2nd, 2024 that approved an interscholastic athletic merger between the Greater Johnstown School District and the Gloversville and Water School District effective for the 2024-25 school year for JV varsity alpine ski. So let's start with the motion. Marge, second. Jen? Any discussion? Question? I'll ask the question. Why are we rescinding this?
The following action would ask to have a 3-school merger.
Oh, okay.
Just the 2 schools, without the 9. I'm afraid to say that.
All right, so all those in favor, please raise your hand. We are unanimous. Thank you very much. So then following on that, looking for a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to approve an interscholastic athletic merger between the Greater Masstown School District and Loversville Large School District and Freitas Central St. Johnsville Central School District, effective for the 24-25 school year for JV varsity alpine ski. Motion? Beth? Second, Leslie. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, good. Thank you. Next up is Harder, Seacrest, and Emory engagement container for cybersecurity related services. This is a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to approve a retainer agreement for cybersecurity related services with Harder, Seacrest, and Emory LLP for the 24-25 school year and authorizing the superintendent to execute said agreement. The engagement letter is provided for the review. So I'd ask for a motion to accept. March, second. Leslie? Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, we're unanimous. And following that is agreement with Cowbell Cyber National Specialty Insurance Company for cyber liability insurance for the 2024-25 school year. This is a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the following. Whereas there have been an increased number of cyber events targeted towards educational institutions, placing organizations at risk of financial exposure from a data breach or other cyber attacks, and whereas the Northeastern Regional Information Center at the Capital Region BOCES has created an NYS Cyber Insurance Consortium that leverages the benefits of shared services, improved purchasing, to create access to more affordable cyber insurance for districts, and whereas NARIC conducted a request for proposals for cyber liability insurance for a policy term for the 24-25 school year, and whereas the proposal submitted by Cowbell Cyber National Specialty Insurance Company meets with all requirements contained in the request for proposal, now therefore be it resolved, the Greater Johnson School District Board of Education hereby approves entering into a cyber liability insurance policy with Cowbell Cyber National Specialty Insurance Company for the 24-25 school year at an annual premium not to exceed $11,098.14, and directs the superintendent to execute the contract for such cyber liability insurance policy. So, can I get a motion? Leslie. Second? Mark? Any discussion?
Yes. I believe it said earlier there was $1 million policy. So is that standard? That doesn't seem like a lot.
It's not,
No.
but it's what we can, it's what's being offered right now. We also have $250,000 additional per year conditional. I mean, it depends on the size of the school district and the ransom, if there is
And they also,
possible.
so working with the broker of record through the NARIC as we were putting this together, we had to fill out an application based on our demographics, the systems and the security that we currently have in place. And from there, they made an individual district recommendation as to the limits we should go out with. So part of the policy, it's $1 million coverage, but it's $1 million coverage for different events. So you might have $1 million if it's this type of event, $1 million if it's this type of event. But that's what did come back as a recommendation based on the experts at this
Yeah,
time.
I noticed the insurance policies are much higher in larger districts. Gilderland, for example, is a $3 million.
I remember at a time a few years ago, it was even hard to much you get beyond $250,000 for your property liability insurance. So this is new. This is a new thing to see it in $1 million range.
Okay, so all those in favor, please raise your hand. We are unanimous. Thank you. All right, next up, we have personnel, action items personnel. So we have some changes to our district staffing with this. I'm going to do the first three individually to recognize them. Is there anybody else here?
No.
Would it make sense for us to cluster these? After I do the three. So first off, I'm looking, this is for the retirement of Stephanie Ellsworth, RN. Looking for a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to accept the resignation of Stephanie Ellsworth as registered nurse effective end of day February 28th, 2025 for purpose of retirement. So we get a motion. Jen, second. Marge? Any discussion? All those in favor? Hand is raised, so what do you do?
Well, just for the record, there should be a lot of comment on these folks because these three nurses are just phenomenal professionals and people, but I'm not sure how best to sum all that up, but you know how wonderful all of these nurses are. They deserve it, yeah, for sure.
And just the loss of 3 nurses in 1 year is
We knew it was coming.
incredible, right? I mean, it's worrisome, you know, from a parent perspective, because that is a lot of collective knowledge and experience in the district. So, you know, there'll be some huge shoes to fill for sure.
Okay. So next up, we have the retirement of Deborah Ruggieri, LPN. So I'm looking for a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to accept the resignation of Deborah Ruggieri as a licensed practical nurse, effective end of day June 30th, 2025 for purposes of retirement. Beth? Second, Jen? Any discussion? All those in favor? Last up, we have retirement of Bobby Joe Senzio, LPN. I'm looking for a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to accept the resignation of Bobby Joe Senzio as licensed practical nurse, effective end of day June 30th, 2025 for purposes of retirement. Jen? Second? Beth? Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. You're unanimous. Thank you. I do want to echo Dr. Crankshaw's sentiments and just summarize that for all 3 of these ladies, they have made huge contributions to our district, to the safety and welfare of our students, and maybe even some of our teachers and staff at times, and they will be missed. So I hope we can manage to fill their shoes best way possible. So we're going to cluster items D, E, well, D is the correction to probationary appointment for Tim Blackman, teacher aide. E is the probationary appointment of Marta Vega, teacher aide. F is the probationary appointment of Lisa Batiste, teacher aide. G is the probationary appointment of Carrie Shue, teacher aide. H is probationary appointment of Dina Macaluso, teaching assistant. I is the probationary appointment of Claire Guslick as an elementary teacher. J is probationary appointment of Jasmine Gonzalez as teaching assistant. K is probationary appointment of Jody Sluty, teaching assistant. L is leave of absence for Jody Sluty as teaching assistant. M is appointment of Jody Sluty an extended leave substitute ENL teacher. N is probationary appointment of Haley Logan, teacher aide. So D through N, I'd like to cluster these in a single vote. So can we have a motion to accept the vote? Second? Marge? Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you for saving me all the reading. Next up, some board discussion. Dr. Crankshaw and I have started to talk about planning a board retreat. Wanted to talk about that in executive session after the meeting. But I think
the date in there, January 25th, was not good.
it was not good for me.
That's right.
As of right now.
I just threw a date and time out there. Last year we did it that date and time.
I'm sorry, this is not for executive session, this is executive content. And then I read the agenda wrong. This is targeted initially for January 25th. We do like to have these sort of in the mid-year portion, you know, right after the holidays. Does anybody, maybe what we can do is fill a few dates, Dr. Crankshaw, between January and February?
Yeah.
But is everybody, Jenny? Yes.
I would prefer January.
Okay.
We can go earlier in January, but essentially, it's a great time to talk about financial long-range planning, and then, capital planning. There's some training in there that I think board members could benefit from, and then there's a mid-year review of data, like how our kids are doing.
So we can certainly look at January, it just being earlier Saturday. Is everybody comfortable with Saturday morning? So, we'll pick the plan. Let me find the one.
Sure.
Okay, next up, we've got the first meeting of the revised policy 5600, wellness. And the second reading and proposal for adoption will appear on the October 10th agenda. So this is a draft policy forwarded to Bob Kramer on August 29th for review and comment. Mr. Kramer responded that he has read through it and agrees with the changes, updates being made. Does anybody have any comments, questions about any of it? A lot of these, most of these changes that we're gonna talk about this evening are changes being suggested by our policy service. So they're relatively minor in nature, nothing too over the top except one policy that towards the lower portion of this, or mid portion of this. All right, so next up we have first reading of revised policy 5681, school safety plans, with the second reading and proposed adoption for the October 10th agenda. The policy was forwarded to Mr. Wood and Mr. Harris for review and comment, and Mr. Wood has indicated he's fine with policy changes.
Essentially, just for the board's benefit, whenever we get a policy that kind of falls within the realm of specialty, for Mr. Wood, or it could be Mr. Farringer, it could be anybody, I kind of pass it by them. If you have any ideas, any suggestions, how does this look to you? And these policies are generally upgrades in language to reflect current law and current practice. And so this one, for example, is just to reflect the law that we have to now notify parents before drills and all that comes along with that. Among other things.
So any further comments or questions about that policy? All right, next up we have first reading of the revised policy 5686, evacuation, lockdown, and emergency dismissal. Again, this has been forwarded to the requisite staff for review. And summary at the bottom under executive content will explain that in response to amendments to New York State regulation, section 155.17 of the Commission's regulations relating to school safety planning requirements. Any comments, questions, discussion? Next up is the first reading of new policy 5840, artificial intelligence. Second reading planned for second reading and proposal for adoption scheduled for October 10th. This is with regard to artificial intelligence and its incorporation into our educational program and our learning environments. It's a 4-page document. It's brand new. It's, as Dr. Crenshaw has explained to me, a combination of 2 separate policy platforms. Our policy service, and what was the second one?
Policy service is about school board association.
So they pluck the best elements of both and combine them into one.
And essentially, we could have gone two ways, but right now, AI, it's not my recommendation that we are allowing students to use AI for instruction right now. We don't know enough about it, but this is basically a blanket policy to recognize that AI is a thing, and that it is useful under some circumstances, but it makes no commitment on the district's part to push it out to students, allow it to be used, and make headaches for teachers about something we don't know much about yet. So that's essentially what we're doing.
Okay, moving along, first reading of revised policy 6550, leaves of absence. Second reading and adoption scheduled for October 10th. Any comments, questions, discussion? Hearing none. We also have first reading of new policy 7609, children with disabilities. Second reading and proposal for adoption for October 10th. This is required by law. So any discussion or comments? Okay, hearing none. Moving along to first reading of revised policy 7220, graduation requirements. Let's see, graduation requirements, formerly graduation options, early graduation accelerated programs. Any discussion? There's a lot of removals on this one. Next up is first reading of new policy 7223, advanced coursework. Second reading and proposal for adoption on August 10th, or excuse me, October 10th. Any discussion, questions? Put it on the table.
First, if I could just ask the board, I think this is a proposed policy, so the first reading doesn't commit the board to anything. But I would encourage you to take a look at virtual policy, and you want to be careful to crosswalk this with what the GJSD contract has in place too, because there's quite a bit of language in the GJSD contract that governs distance learning, virtual instruction, so things are changing.
And I'll assume you have integrated those elements of the JPA contract with this policy.
We have a distance learning portion of the policy. I think virtual instruction is what it is. We offer it. We usually try to have communication. There's no big front here.
Okay.
I think it's very important to know that the JTA does have language.
Okay. Any comments or questions? And last but not least, we have the first reading of new policy 7471, student government. So any discussion on that? Hearing none. We'll have another opportunity for the second reading next month. Encourage everybody to read those policies in a little bit more detail. Upcoming meetings and events. So we have a bunch of things in September. We have September 24th, Pleasant Ave Open House at 5:30 p.m. September 25th, the Shared Decision Making Committee at 3 p.m. in the district office. The September 25th, we have the Warren Open House at 5:30 p.m. October 2nd, we have the academic and extracurricular meeting at 6:30 in the district office. October 2nd is also the Personnel Committee meeting at 7:30 p.m.
So these are the ones changed to the night.
Yeah. They changed from the Tuesday to the Wednesday at the same meeting. October 9th, we have the Facilities Committee meeting at 6:30 in the district office. And again, October 9th, we have the Audit Budget and Finance Committee meeting at 7:30 p.m. October 10th, we have the next business meeting of the Board of Education at 6:30 p.m. Please note, the meeting will be at the Pleasant Avenue Cafetorium. I really can't believe we haven't come up with a better name for that. October 16th is the GJSD Open House at 6 p.m. And October 17th is the Knox Open House at 5:30 p.m. We have a lot of open houses coming up. We encourage board members to take the opportunity to visit the schools just be seen.
If you remember, you will have a mastership in certain schools, and Tori, your open houses, I don't think it's mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it is?
5:30 to 6:30.
Okay, I quit. I'm done.
Okay, so we have a possible executive session. I'm looking for a motion to enter into executive session at 7:28 p.m. to discuss the employment history of a particular person. Can I have a motion? Jen, second? With that, any discussion? All in favor?